Hi, Tracy here, also known as Mercy Tiara, with another episode of Find Your Mojo. Each episode will give you a prompt or a challenge to get your creative juices flowing and get you scrapping and documenting your memories. This time, the prompt is to use a grid. So let's get started. Hi there, Tracy here with another episode of Find Your Mojo with Mercy Tiara. Today's prompt is to start with a grid. And so I'm going to be starting with a 2x2 grid with 4 spots on it. I only have 3 photos, so if I had 4 photos, I would put them in a grid like this. If I had 6 photos, I would put them in a grid like this. And you can do this with any number of photos. I happen to have 3 photos to scrap today, so I'm going to use the 4th place in my grid to either hold my title or my journaling, or you could even do a little bit of both. You could put your title and then a couple lines of journaling underneath. So that's the way I'm going to set up my grid. And so I'm going to put all of these, I'm going to put you on fast forward in just a second, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these on a piece of white cardstock to make a grid. And then I'm going to leave this part of the grid empty so that I can decide what to do with it. These photos are printed at 4x4, so I may cut myself a 4x4 piece of journaling paper or something with lines on it, or a plain piece of pattern paper or something to fill that space with. And then I'm going to use this grid as the jumping off point for the rest of my layout. Now, as you can see, this is a piece of 12x12 paper. So once I have 4 4x4 blocks on it, it's going to take up most of this layout. So I'm not going to have a whole lot of room for decorations, and that's okay. I really wanted these photos to be large, and this is going to be a very photo dominant layout, and that's okay. So I have no idea what direction this layout is going to take, other than the fact that I'm starting with a grid. I have the Cute Girl collection here from Crate Paper. It has these awesome chipboard stickers, and then I have all of the paper here. It's a really beautiful collection, so I'm looking forward to using it. I also have a whole bunch of the embellishments that go with this. So I'm going to put you on fast forward and we'll see where we go with this one. So I'm going to start by just trimming up these photos with my Creative Memory trimmer. This is my small, tiny printer trimmer that I love to use for trimming up the photos that I print at home. I print all of my photos on my Epson PictureMate Charm, which is a small format photo printer. It prints onto 4x6 paper. And as I mentioned in the first part of this video, I'm going to just mat all of these photos into one, I guess you could call it a clump of photos that is going to be in a 2x2 grid. What I mean by that is there are 2 photos across and 2 photos down, making a total of 4 photos. And because they're printed at 4x4, as I mentioned, that gives me this really nice sized, almost like a collage to start with. And so I know that I've got all of this space in the clouds of that photo of the roller coaster, and so I'm thinking about maybe using some of the chipboard stickers to overlap on those clouds. And this paper here really, with the bands of color, really stood out as a great potential background. Just because I love the colors in it. It picks up on some of the colors that are in the photos, and I really like that band of yellow that's kind of across, not quite the middle. I think that I'm going to be able to pick up on that if I use that as my background paper. Now, this paper here with all of these collaged journaling pieces really struck me as a great place to put my journaling. I really liked those 3 hearts up in the corner. I thought that they gave a really nice detail to this square that is otherwise, I don't want this square to look too boring compared to the photos. So I'm just trimming it down so that it makes a 4x4 square, so it'll match with all the other photos. But I trimmed it such that I kept those hearts intact and up in the corner there. And so that finishes off my grid. I'm thinking about maybe matting this whole layout onto white cardstock. And if I decided to do that, I would have to trim down this background paper. I ended up deciding not to do this for a couple of reasons that I think I'll talk about a little bit later in this video. But for now, I'm thinking about just kind of like the overall layout. So how am I going to work with this fairly large grid that I have? And I wanted, because the background is such a high contrast background, like it's just kind of very strong and bold, I wanted to, I guess, kind of tone it down by using this much more neutral pattern paper as one of my layers. And so I'm just trimming it down. This is the gray paper. It's a very, very light gray with white triangles on it, and it came in the collection. While I have my trimmer out, I'm just going to take the manufacturer's strip off of that background paper. And so now I have my grid and I have one layer. And you'll notice that I did not mat the grid with that paper. Instead, I layered it. So I kind of offset it a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing with this black pattern paper. It's almost exactly the same paper. It's just black with white triangles instead of gray with white triangles. Normally I wouldn't use these two papers right beside each other, but I kind of liked it for this one. The black paper gives the grid quite a lot more contrast, and the fact that it's interrupted really gives it a little bit more dynamic energy than if I had just matted the grid on top of the gray and then the gray on top of the black so that there were intact borders all the way around. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking the piece of confetti vellum. It's got like these little flecks all over it, including some gold foil flecks. And I just took a little piece of it and then I created a banner, just as you saw, just by kind of cutting. I measured in 1/4 of an inch so that the banner would have the exact same angle of fishtails on either end of it. And I'm going to use that to really accentuate that yellow strip in the background. At this point, I'm still putting it a little bit above the yellow strip, but here I'm layering it right on top of the yellow strip in the background. And that's going to be where some of my embellishments are going to fall as well. I'm going to use a visual triangle on this one, which is a go-to design technique. And so it just kind of draws your eyes around the page. And I'm using that chipboard cloud because I'm putting it in the clouds that are on my photo. So it kind of goes with the theme. And there's so much white space in that photo. I thought it was a perfect spot to put some embellishments. So here you see that I put those balloons up in the top corner. And now I'm just adding a little bit more detail to this journaling piece by using this square frame. And boy, I really want to use this square frame, but I also don't want to cover up those hearts. So I put the frame on a piece of wax paper so I could just think about that dilemma of, do I use the frame or do I leave the hearts intact? And in the meantime, I'm thinking about just that discontinuation up at the top where the black is interrupted by my layer of gray paper, and I really like that, but it might be a little bit too much, and so I don't want such a U shape to the black. And so I thought about using this chipboard scalloped black piece to kind of cap off where the black is discontinued, but I think that just kind of caps it off a little bit too much. So I noticed that the puffy stickers have a similar black scalloped shape in them, and it is smaller, so it doesn't quite have as much weight as that large chipboard one did, and it's going to be perfect because it's smaller, so I don't even have to cut it, and I'll still have that interrupted edge. I really wanted that gap where there's no black on the top, and it also introduced a different texture because the chipboard balloons next to the puffy sticker just adds a little bit more interest than chipboard next to other chipboard. I also grabbed that other puffy sticker that says sisters, and I'm going to place it on the photo so that it goes over the edge. And then I went into the die cut pieces and I grabbed this adorable little ice cream cone, which is one of my favorite things in the whole collection. And then I grabbed the word love too. And I thought about using the word love maybe as an accent piece, but also maybe as a title. So I am going to outline these vellum pieces that make up what looks like a banner. I saved on the vellum by cutting it in half so that I could have a much smaller piece serve the same purpose. And I just am outlining it with my Faber-Castell Pitt pen. And most pens will mark fine on vellum and will not smear, but I did test my pen a little bit on an edge that was not going to be seen, just to make sure. So I'm just placing it, I'm running my adhesive, and I'm using Scrapbook adhesive, a permanent dot runner, which is a nice clear adhesive, which I do enjoy a clear adhesive, so I like that one for that reason. And now I'm just sticking some of these things in place that I've already decided. I really like how that scalloped puffy sticker looks up in the top like that. And I like it right up against the balloons. And I'm just placing Sisters, that navy blue banner, so that it does overhang the edge of the photo a little bit. I really like to interrupt things, and here's what I'm doing. This is my solution to my problem, where I wanted to use that frame, but I also wanted the hearts to show. So I just cut a little hole in the frame, and I'm thinking about, do I use it? Do I not use it? And I decide to use it. I'm going to go ahead and leave that frame. Again, I like these interruptions. It seems to be my thing these days. And so I'm going to it looks a little unfinished there. So I'm just going to wrap a whole bunch of twine around. And this is just twine that I got at Michael's, I think. And it's just from my stash, and I'm going to tie it. It's a really pretty white with gold twine, baker's twine. So I wrapped a whole lot of lengths of it, and now I'm going to do the same thing with this side. And I just had to move the angle of it, and I forgot to move it so that it was in frame, but I'm just doing the exact same thing. It was just easier for me because I'm right-handed, to be able to do it this way and hold it still with my right hand and twist it with my left. And so this is just all the same stuff that you saw. There you go. Sorry about that. And I'm just tying it very tightly. And now that does introduce quite a bit of bulk under those two edges. And so I'm going to go to my stash and grab a glue dot. These are Zots from ThermoWeb. And I'm using medium glue dots because the small ones are just a little bit too small, but the medium are just a little bit too big. So you can just fold up a glue dot if it's too big and make it the size that you need it to be. And that will just hold those edges down because the twine makes them not sticky and stand out a little bit. So here I get to get the best of both worlds because I really like the size of the die cut ice cream cone, but I liked the shiny texture of the puffy sticker of the ice cream cone. I really didn't want it to be smaller. So what I decided to do was to layer them so that I got the size from the die cut that's on the back and the shininess from the puffy sticker that's on the front. And now because this embellishment is going to span two different surfaces, so it has to, part of it will hang over the edges of the chipboard frame and part of it will be on the chipboard frame. I'm just making a little channel in the middle of it. I'm using double layers of foam adhesive to create a little channel in the middle that chipboard frame can sit upon, and that way the embellishment will lie flat. So I am just having a look at the puffy stickers, and I'm sorry that I forgot to zoom out here, but what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the stars, and you'll see them in just a second. I'm taking some of the stars from the puffy stickers and I'm putting them in the three places where my embellishments will land, and you'll see those in just a second. But first I'm going to layer a couple of the stickers, the element stickers that go along with this collection, and I'm layering them with that chipboard cloud. And I love to layer different kinds of stickers and embellishments all together so that you get different textures and different heights and widths, and it just adds to the interest of an embellishment cluster. I'm going to outline these hearts because I love them so much. I just want to emphasize them. And while I have my pen out, I'm actually going to I'm going to do the opposite of outline. I'm going to inline. Is that a word? I'm going to inline this love. And so I just took the brush tip. I need a bolder marker. And so I took the brush tip Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and I'm just following the lines of the die cut, and I'm writing love so that this looks like I hand wrote love and then cut it out, even though that's not at all what happened. So the reason I did that is it makes the word love stand out a little bit more, especially when it's right beside that ice cream cone, which is outlined already. So I just wanted to have a little bit more emphasis because I'm thinking at this point that the word love just might be part of my title. And so it's not just an accent, it's more important that it shows. I wanted a word sticker or a phrase sticker, like one of those little typed tiny word stickers that come in lots of different collections these days. But I wanted a very specific phrase. I wanted it to say too much because that roller coaster was a little bit too much for my kids. They weren't horrified or anything on it, but it took them a while to want to go on another roller coaster. So I thought that was cute, and I was pretty sure that I wouldn't be able to find it in those Tim Holtz tiny word stickers that you can get. They come in a couple of different brands, but I think it's called Chit Chat by Tim Holtz. So I'm using a new adhesive. This one is made by 3L, although it doesn't say 3L anywhere on the packaging. It's branded, it says Home and Hobby Glue Pen Dual Tip, and it has permanent liquid adhesive, and it has a fine tip and a wide tip. And so I'm giving that a try for gluing down my too much little homemade word phrase sticker. It's not really a sticker because it's not sticky. Now that embellishment is all assembled, I can place it on my photo so that, again, I'm having it so that it overhangs. And I just grabbed a couple of dimensional adhesive hexagons from Stampin' Up, and I place them where the cloud overhangs just so that it will lie flat. And I didn't even remove the backing, I just left them on. So now you see I have these 3 clusters of embellishments that kind of guide your eye. Here are more of those star stickers. Remember, I was out of frame when I put some things on. I was putting those star stickers up by the balloons. You can just barely see them up in the top right-hand corner. And I'm doing a little switcheroo there. Because I have these 3 clusters of embellishments, one where the balloons are in the top right, one where the clouds are in the kind of middle-ish left, and one down here by the ice cream on the bottom right. And so I'm putting a couple of those puffy sticker stars in each of those 3 places. And I also just put a little puffy sticker on the word on the sticker that says sisters, just because it just adds a little bit more interest. I really like that. It brightens up that sticker a little bit. And while I was at it, I put another heart, the turquoise one, right on the cloud. Again, it just kind of brightens it up a little bit. I put the So Sweet puffy sticker on top of the clouds, not the clouds, the balloons. And again, I'm combining textures here. I want to combine chipboard with the puffy stickers whenever I can, because the puffy stickers adds that pop of shininess. So here I am having a look through the thickers and large letter stickers that are in my stash. I have a pretty sizable collection of them because I've been scrapbooking for a while. And so I chose all black ones because I wanted to have a nice, easy to read, high contrast title. So I chose these as my options. I have a Heidi Swap and a couple of thickers, including an Amy Tangerine. I ended up opting for the thickers that are called Honey Puffy letter stickers. And I chose these ones because, again, I just mentioned I was trying to mix the flat cardstock and chipboard elements with the shiny of puffy stickers throughout this layout. And so these ones are a shiny puffy letter sticker, and I thought that they would provide a bit of contrast with that word love. So this layout is going to be called Coaster Love, but oh no, look, my word coaster is not going to fit inside of that frame. Then I thought, well, it's a roller coaster after all. Maybe I need to make this word kind of follow a bouncing baseline, I think it's called in when you learn about script letters and calligraphy and stuff. So a bouncing baseline is when your words kind of go, your letters within your word go up and down instead of straight across. And so I'm going to play around with these until I want to get a balance of, primarily they need to fit, and secondarily they need to be readable. Maybe those two things are equally important in this case. But I'm going to fiddle with them a little bit, both right now and a little bit later on, just to make sure that they're very readable. I'm using my tiny attacher to staple the word love onto the chipboard frame. And I had a bit of trouble with it because that frame is just narrow enough that the tiny attacher doesn't want to stick to it. So then I went ahead and stuck the ice cream cone down, which it had already had those dimensional adhesive in it from before. And then I just took a little bit more of that liquid glue just to stick the bottom bits of the word love down to the frame, just where it's only stapled with a single staple. It was a little bit too wobbly for my liking, so that'll just hold it in place. And I really like how that title looks. It says Coaster Love, and I really like how that problem ended up causing, I think that the problem ended up making my title look much, much more interesting than it would have if I had just written coaster straight across. So now I took a piece of tracing paper, and I just wanted to plan out my journaling in such a way. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to say about this. So tracing paper allowed me to play around with the size and length of journaling that I wanted to do and see if the sentences that I wanted to say would fit in the space that I have. I didn't end up journaling exactly what I wrote here, but it did give me a sense of how long my sentences would be and how much space I had to work with. So my journaling actually says, at Canada's Wonderland, the girls were brave and rode a few of the big coasters like the Bat. They preferred the smaller ones like the Fly and Riptide. And so because I had experimented with the tracing paper, it fit perfectly in the space that I had, and I knew how big or small I needed to write my words for it to fit. If you don't have any tracing paper, you could have used vellum. I think that would be a more expensive way to do it, just because I think vellum costs more per page than tracing paper does. Or you could even use a transparency, or even just a thin piece of computer paper if you could see through it and just write down, like kind of trace around the shape. So now I'm taking some word stickers from the element stickers that go with this collection, and I'm trimming some of them down so that they end at the right places. And this is just kind of one of the final touches. So you'll notice that the clusters of embellishments form a visual triangle around this layout and kind of guide your eye around the whole page. I'm just using my tiny attacher to staple those stickers in place, and then I just had to kind of adjust things underneath to make sure that everything was falling properly and so that it all looked nice and flat. I'm having one last look at the embellishments that I have to decide whether I'm done or not, and I'm done. Just one last look, and I am finished. So I'm going to show you this layout up close. I have these 3 clusters of embellishments, and I'm going to show it to you up close right now, and then there are some photos at the end for you to look at as well. So on this layout, each of these clusters, I focused on having a combination of the shiny, puffy stickers and the more matte, I guess, chipboard stickers and also just cardstock stickers that go with the kit. And so I tried to combine each of those 2, I guess, textures in each of these clusters. And I find that using a grid as a starting off point is a really nice way to get your creative juices flowing when I'm not quite sure how to proceed with a layout. It kind of limits your options in some ways, because once you've decided to set your photos and journaling or whatever components that you're using, once you decide to set them onto a grid, then it's really just a matter of designing around that grid. And whether you use a visual triangle, or if you use more of a diagonal, or if you use kind of like a line across the page, whatever design elements you use, starting off with a grid really kind of, it gives you a starting point, and then you can kind of be creative as you want to be from that point. So thanks so much for watching. I hope that if you find yourself lacking in Scrappy Mojo, that you give this a try. Just start with a grid and let me know how it goes. You can tag me on social media. I'm Mercy Tiara on most forms of social media. And you can also use the hashtag Find Your Mojo with Mercy Tiara, and I will see your layouts. And thanks so much for watching, and have a really great Scrappy week.